Alright, so I've been meaning to shoot this video for a while. It's basically like the anatomy of a Matsuri car at Ebisu, and it kind of fits into like a lot of drift cars. But what I want to do is I want to show you this drift car, tell you why it's special, and like what it does and how it works and other things. So first of all, it's a JZX100. It's got a 1JZ in it, an R154 transmission, and it's Toyota. Now, the important part of it being Toyota is each part of the car which is Toyota is what makes it special and so reliable. So if I was to put a 350Z transmission in it, or whatever else to try and cut cost on an R154, like other parts in it, it would become less reliable, I think, than it is, because each part of the car that's Toyota kind of makes it reliable and special. So when I think about this car, I try to remember not to be cheap on certain parts, whatever, but that if I retain everything Toyota and think in that way, that it'll be the best car possible. And that's probably like kind of confusing a lot of the time because we modify cars so much, but because it's an R154, the car has given me no trouble from the transmission, because it's an upgraded, or updated 100 R154, not the older 90 and 7M ones and stuff. The transmission's been fantastic. I just put good fluid in it and I just forget about it. The engine is just like, put fluid in it, forget about it. The Toyota 1JZ has done thousands of laps here, received almost no maintenance in the last 4 years on this car. I have had it for about 4 years now. I think maybe 3 going on 4. And it's been amazing. We're very hard on the body, but we're drifting, but the drivetrain's been doing great. We're still basically on the stock axles, I think I've broken one axle for some reason, but stock axles normally never break on these. Stock drive shaft, stock transmission, stock engine, stock turbo, all of that stuff. We have had to replace a clutch, and I think that's about it in the drivetrain. And I think an exhaust manifold, because I had an aftermarket one that was cracking, and we replaced it, moved it to stock. Come here, let me show you some more stuff. The tires that we use here, we can use any tires, but the tires that last the longest, and this isn't a plug for Kenda or whatever, but basically we all use Kendas in the rear. They last the longest here, and they're very available here. We've tried some other tires at Matsuri time and they haven't lasted as long, so this is basically what everybody uses. Now, I use a 235 40 to 45 17, and I also use a 235 18. The reason I'm kind of swapping over recently to 17s, they save you about $10 a tire, but that's not the big reason. The big reason is with a bit more sidewall, I'm gonna break wheels less, I hope. And I haven't really broken a lot of wheels, but I have had to hammer them out. And my SSRs are basically trash now. Those are my cool baller 18s. And with a 17, it's hopefully just going to have more room when I touch things where it compresses and doesn't break the wheel. Because the most important thing is not breaking everything constantly. This is 17 by 9 plus 12, no spacer in the rear, and the front is a 17 by 9 plus 12, and there is a spacer for the angle. It does have a simple angle kit, which is like a bolt-on little knuckle piece, because they're different than Nissans and stuff. You don't cut the knuckle, you just put a new bolt-on attachment, and it's a Heyman one, and it gets more angle than you need. Really simple. The bodywork, this was actually from a wheel coming off and smashing and ripping the body apart a little bit. That's a really weird thing. Normally the body gets smashed in, not out. We have lots of damage in the back, and the back keeps getting softer and softer, but we'll typically push it out at the end of each Matsuri or after each wreck. This needs to be moved a little bit so I can close the trunk, but as long as the trunk isn't smashed and dented, the lid, I'm pretty sure I can get it back down. It's not gonna be a problem. This got pushed in multiple times and we just kind of keep pushing it back out.
Here, just push for a second. Push. Ready? Push. 1, 2, 3. Go!
Hey! Come over here. This is the side of the car that receives the most tire marks. We've painted over a bunch of them and we just keep putting more of them down. The body is not too terribly molested. It's pretty much straight. I mean, it's not straight like if you were selling a car, but I mean, it's not smashed in a foot. There, 1-inch dents all up and down the body. All the doors still work and open. The windows still roll up and down and stuff. That's really important because you don't want to have to like come back after storing the car for 6 months or a year and have all the glass blown out and the interior destroyed, because these things get covered in like 4 feet of snow here. So it's important to have the doors and windows and all that stuff done. We have basically all stock seats except the driver's seat. The driver's seat is a bucket with a stock belt. Next year, I think we're gonna need harnesses and a bolt-in cage like a Cusco. So this thing is probably gonna get like caged next year, but I haven't had any big accidents that have required it. I've gotten really lucky, but we've had some people get hurt here at Ebisu lately, so that's gonna be changing. The fenders, people ask me, why is the car so high? And actually, it's not crazy high. What we've done is we've actually radiused the fender and taken like that much out of the fender to actually cut it, because we're so hard on these cars and we jump them constantly, and Ebisu is really, really like mountainous. It can be really hard on lowered cars. So you want your car high enough that not only can the suspension function, but you can actually get around the track. Before, no matter what I did, we would constantly smash fenders by jumping the car and smashing them up at Minami and other places and taking out fenders. So we just started cutting them. And even cut this much, we're still smashing fenders. And previously on my other set of fenders, I'd cut them here and made a spacer to wide body them, but it's almost easier instead of all that. So I'd removed all this, pulled it out a couple inches, made a spacer, and then made a wide body fender, but I still trash those. It's easier just to cut them out for the most part. We do not run impact beams on these cars here, so we're not gonna have like a cool bash bar, so you've gotta be really careful. Because your intercooler is the outermost point of contact, and they don't really have like Chinese intercoolers here. Everything is typically like a Greddy or something, so they're really expensive, so you don't wanna smash it. Up front, we're running an identical tire setup in the back, same size wheel and front to back, and it's a 235 up front as well. The 235s in the Kenda cost a lot cheaper than the really sticky tires. They last way longer, which is important to me. And I actually don't like having a much stickier tire up front than in the back, because it causes the car to feel like it oversteers too easily. And it grabs and pivots the car around really hard and stuff. I want the front end to slide a little bit and be a little bit more forgiving. This is the side that gets smashed into a lot more. So most of the damage on this car when it was like completely smashed came from when like a fuel pump fuse died, or some type of mechanical problem with the car happened, and then we just got smashed into because we didn't move on track like a car should. We just came to a sudden stop on track and then somebody smashed us. So that really sucks and is dangerous. So the car's got to be like in good running order. And like I said with Toyota stuff, this is basically a stock fuel pump, stock injectors, stock most everything that makes it run, which is really important because you just want to get as many laps as possible out of the car, and you don't want to have to work on it too much. Oh, before we get under the hood, I run about 30 PSI in the front tires, or 2 bar, and in the back I run anywhere from a little bit over a bar up to about 4 bar depending on the track. So instead of changing tire size and compound and everything else, if we're going to Minami, which requires me to have more power or less grip or whatever, air pressure's free. So instead of putting bigger tires on the car or smaller tires on the car, or changing things or adding more horsepower or anything else, we just air the tires up a bunch. And I've run up to 120 PSI out here before, which is a bunch of bar, I don't even know, like 8 bar or something. We'll run 4 bar plus on Minami, so the car feels like it has more power. But you gotta be careful, because if you run too much air pressure, you could spin out and the car has a lot less grip. So you need to know about that. The car runs about 0.8 bar of boost or below. Sometimes it makes about 0.7, sometimes it makes about 0.8. So it's not much more than stock. But by doing that, I keep really, how do you say it? The car is really, really reliable. We have a factory fan setup, factory fan shroud. The car actually doesn't overheat even on a factory Toyota radiator. We've removed the air conditioning condenser and stuff so that we don't have all that extra space to blow through and everything. And then we have a big front mount intercooler. I would prefer to run a front bumper and stuff, but it gets knocked off a lot here. So I actually don't even run bumpers. I would prefer to have them in and stuff, but like I just run them over. Basically everything else under here, other than like the air filter and the intercooler piping, is stock. Stock turbo. This just has the heat shield removed so you can't see it. Stock injectors. A nice piece of wood here to hold down the battery since it's the wrong size battery. And I've got BC Racing coilovers, but any type of coilover would probably work just fine. I like those, so I use those. And other than that, this is stock up here, basically stock boost. Super, super simple. So yeah, what we're trying to do with these cars is make them drift really well, make sure that they don't have anything broken, and do all the maintenance so that like they will function well on track, so that like when you pull the e-brake works, because that's really important. So like I fiddled a lot with the e-brake in this thing, and Power Vehicles has and everything. We've run Project Move pads, we're currently running stock pads, and it's working pretty well. And it needs to be adjusted pretty often. Like sometimes we're adjusting this e-brake every couple days or every day, depending on how well we're doing. What else? I do have a clutch in this thing. Spec sent me over a clutch. So the clutch was originally just probably like a stock clutch or something. So it did need an upgraded clutch because obviously we're drifting this thing sometimes 14 days a trip or more, you know, and then once you put a clutch in it, you kind of just forget about it forever. I never kill those clutches, so it's pretty easy. What else? You think of anything, Sai?
That's about it.
Oh, you know what's really important as well is alignment. We kind of eyeball the alignment and stuff. What's most necessary is just to have a little bit of toe out in front so the car transitions smoothly, a little bit of toe in the rear, and then we kind of don't mess with camber except for in the rear where we try and make the camber flat, or the tire wear flat, and that's kind of all we mess with camber in the rear for. The alignments are really important here. If your car's not aligned, these tracks are super dangerous, and it's kind of deathly. Like the car needs to transition well, needs to do everything. This car gets put in the air every couple days. I check all the suspension bolts to make sure everything's tight, and then I will also check to see if my tie rods are bent. Sometimes it's really obvious, sometimes it's not obvious if the tie rods are bent. On this trip, I think I was driving on a bent tie rod for, you know, like a day and kind of struggling before I noticed. So basically, as much of the drivetrain as you can keep Toyota or like OEM in a car is really important. And these things just work so well because we chose the car that had the motor in it that we wanted for like ultimate reliability, good power, all of that stuff. Not every car can like remain a stock engine like this and work. So it's important to choose the car you want really, really well. Like in America, my new car is a Corvette because it has the powertrain I want and everything from the factory and is a great setup. And I didn't have to swap it and do everything else because swap cars kind of become a nightmare. And up here, we do not want to work on the cars. Like at home, if I had a swapped car, it would not be this reliable, nowhere near. And another thing that's really important is since most of the cars are JZX up here, there's lots of spare parts to use. They will sell them to you. It's easy to get them. You don't have to wait super long, so the car can be fixed very quickly and get back out on track fast. What else? We say everything?
That's about it.
Okay. I want to give a huge shout out to What Monsters Do for making our Japanese content possible, and Inky Wheels. If it was not for them, because this content is so expensive to do in Japan, we would not be able to do it. Thank you so very, very much. Go to their website, buy some merchandise. Here's a discount code for 20% off so you can save some money. It's Ebisu. Thank you so much. Bye. Do you know what the most important thing about a Matsuri car is, Sai? Look at that. And also, my AC vents swing back and forth. But we've gutted the AC, so it doesn't actually do much. Oh, look at this. This car is so not race car. I still have a working TV. Let's see if it turns on. I might have it all disconnected at the moment. But yeah, up until recently, I don't know what I did to it. I still had a working TV with antenna and everything, and we could watch like Sailor Moon and shit while we were in here. You know, I might have stolen the fuse for it as a thing for the fuel pump last year because I was popping fuel pump fuses. Cool. All right.